Welcome to the September 11, 2017 planning meeting of the School Board. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Banyas? Ms. Dawson? Here. Mr. Sundo?
Here.
Mr. Kashani? Mr. DiTullio?
Here.
Ms. Goebel? Here. Ms. Johnston? Here. Mr. Lyons?
Here.
Mr. Stegman?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you all for my president's statement. I'm going to offer a moment of silence on behalf of Pine Richmond School District family. We'd like to take a moment of silence in remembrance of former Richland Elementary second grade teacher Jane Dorman, who passed away on September 6, 2017. She was hired in 1994 after she completed a student teaching assignment at Hance Elementary School. This beloved teacher was missed after she moved in 2013 when her husband's job was relocated to Lidditz, Pennsylvania. Our condolences and thoughts are with Jane's family and friends at this time. Please join with us in a moment of silence in her remembrance. Thank you. Item 1.02 is recognition of visitors. Any member of the public wish to speak, address the board, please do so. Seeing none, move on to item 1.03, correspondence. Ms. White.
Mr. John Weegraff emailed the board regarding policy 103.
Thank you, Ms. White. Item 1.04, minutes for approval. Recommended actions, a motion to approve the meeting minutes as attached.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to other action items, 2.01, personnel items. Motion to approve personnel and supplemental items as attached.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2.02, approval of contract for Director of Financial and Operational Services. This is an information item.
No, this is it actually.
I thought it wasn't supposed to be. It's listed that way. So we need to refresh
You
the...
could just refresh.
Okay. My apologies, Ms. Kirk. Motion to reapprove Ms. Dana Kirk to the position of Director of Financial and Operational Services for a term commencing July 1st, 2018 and ending on June 30th, 2023, as per the conditions in the attached employment agreement.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Again, just want to add a quick thank you to the board. We're very fortunate to have Mrs. Kirk here, and in our district, she does wear different hats and responsibilities, and the benefit of her knowledge in different areas beyond pure business office makes a big difference to us in how we operate as a district. So thanks, Dana.
Item 2.03, third and final reading of policy 222, use of tobacco and tobacco-like products. The motion is to approve that reading.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passed. Item 2.04, electric post mix unit donation. Motion is to accept in accordance with board policy number 702, gifts, grants, and donations, and with sincere gratitude, a donation from the PR Touchdown Club, an Impulse One Cornelius over-counter electric post mix unit at a cost of approximately $5,100.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2.05, IDA conference. Motion to approve staff attendance and application of Hants Elementary special education teacher Eileen Greenblatt to attend the 2017 International Dyslexia Association Reading, Literacy, and Learning Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, from Thursday, November 9th through Friday, November 10th, as attached.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passed. Item 3.01, strategic plan, academic system. Would that be Dr.
Oh,
Professor?
you know what, I will take it.
Okay.
That's fine. So I'll turn your attention either to your screen or to the main screen. One of the challenges in education in an organization with, we've talked about it, we have 500 employees, about 330 or so teachers, many administrators, different years' experience, is building over time a common language in order to think about what it is that we do. And clearly, the focus for us is on students and the learning process. What we've done here is how do you take that complex thing, which is K-12 public education for all of the students that we have with various needs, and how do we as a begin to use language that is consistent, help us think about the systems and programs we have. So on the left side of the question we posed was how do we focus on academic learning? So for this sort of discussion, we're really focused on, if you will, the content and skills that connect to the courses that students are engaged in. You've seen the images before, at least the middle two. So this is really about what's in the middle. So the first picture in the middle are the three circles of curriculum, instruction, and assessment. We've talked about that a lot. As those circles of what it is we want kids to know, how we measure whether they've learned it, and what strategies are we using in the classroom to help students be successful. The closer those three circles, the more they overlap, the more aligned our system is for all of our kids. So we've spent an awful lot of time on curriculum and instruction, and we're shifting into the assessment topic. We see it this year with STAR 360, we see it with COGAT 7, but we're also seeing it in our strategic plan. One of our key initiatives is developing common local assessments and building a process to do that. So we're taking a look at that third circle this year and pushing those circles together. So our hope in our organization of 360 teachers and administrators is that by just looking at that image, we can reinforce the concepts that we've been working on. The next layer down is our MTSS, or multi-tier system of supports. So again, we've spent an awful lot of time. You've heard from Mr. Huswit, you've heard from Dr. Davis, you've heard from others. We have very active MTSS teams in our schools that are using performance from the three circls in order, and how kids are doing, in order to determine what, if any, additional supports, interventions, programs are needed. So that green triangle splits into Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. You've seen that before. The idea, part of the idea is as we go up into the peak of the triangle, we get more intense with smaller numbers of kids. As we move to the bottom, it's our general sort of three-circle type program. The next layer down is what we describe as our continuum of services. we're often talking about special education or gifted education or English learners or students perhaps with a 504 or health needs, whatever the case might be. And that is to say we have a continuum of services to meet the needs. Some of the children in Pine Richland are literally educated in their home because that's where they need to be educated. It's the most restrictive placement. It's very rare, but that happens. And we have all sorts of different pieces in between. So the intention of just one slide is to take what is complex in what we do on the academic side and try to attach it to some symbols that allow us as an organization to really get our heads and hands wrapped around it. On the right side of the slide, there's an awful lot of things we discuss that sort of are pieces that fit into the model. And so again, we share that with the board tonight as something that we've been talking about, thinking about, because you've seen all the parts and pieces, but never together in a way of thinking about what it is we do academically. So this is really just an update on that academic side.
Any questions from the board for Dr. Miller?
How do we use this consistently in our messaging out to the students and parents?
We're just starting to do that. So we've talked about pieces, but we're sharing this really as our sort of thinking comes together. So this will be our first group that is pulling all these pieces together and talking through that. Our principals, assistant superintendents, and we'll continue to layer that through with our staff and then tie it into communication. So we'll get there. But right now we're starting with our key building leaders in discussion. So it provides a great opportunity for Dr. Pasquinelli and Dr. Silva, as they're doing walkthroughs and talking with principals, to, again, take what we can describe in 1,000 words and sort of put it tightly into some pictures that are pretty powerful for what we do.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you, Dr. Miller.
Sure.
Move on to finance, Mr. Sundahl.
Item 4.01, at the September 25th voting meeting, we'll be approving the typical monthly financial reports. Item 4.02, budget transfers. There won't be any pursuant to PA School Code. There are no budget transfers until at the earliest, October 1st. And a reminder of Joint Finance Building and Grounds Committee meeting on November 13th at 6 p.m. Topics covered: capital funding, project update, and print and copy services.
Any other comments, questions? Mr. Sundahl? Thank you, Mr. Sundahl.
Welcome.
Academic achievement, Ms. Dawson.
Item 5.01 regards Amplify implementation, which I'm sure the fine doctors could speak to better than I.
Thank you, Ms. Dawson. Amplify, this is an informational item for this meeting, but we've talked about Amplify now for a couple of years. We did an evaluation of Amplify when we looked at our science resources 2 years ago. Last year, we went into an implementation of Amplify in grade 7, where we were looking at a number of units, not the full package, but a number of units, to further evaluate that resource, and found a lot of success in working with our 7th grade team. So at the end of last year, we made the recommendation to purchase Amplify as an additional resource for 7th grade science. And when we did that, the company offered us opportunity to look at a couple of additional units in grades 6 and 8 as well, free of cost. In getting closer to implementation this year, we found that with that free of cost, we had limited flexibility of when we could utilize those units. And that was a concern because the 2 units that we were looking at, the combined amount of time to teach those units was 30 days, and that would have, what Amplify was asking for was 30 consecutive days. And we didn't want to be held to that consecutive days with that resource, because again, grades 6 and 8 are just learning about it this year. So to to have the flexibility of using 2 units of Amplify in grades 6 and 8, there's a cost of $3,500. There's budgeted funds on our curriculum budget to pay for that, but would like to pay for those units in grades 6 and 8 to really, again, study the impact that they would have, and the purchase, again, gives us the flexibility of when we use them over not just a small period of time, but over the course of the entire school year. So at the next board meeting, we would be asking for an approval to purchase those units for grades 6 and 8.
Any questions for Dr. Pasquinelli?
Thank you. Item 5.02 is a reminder of an exciting meeting coming up on October 23rd at 6 p.m. with tentative topics to include technology, professional development, one of my favorites, food service, and transportation. As always, it's the place to be, academics.
Yes, it is.
Item 5.03. Any questions about the pending meeting? Okay, item 5.03 is another reminder of yet another exciting academic achievement meeting on November 20th at 6 p.m. And we'll just hold our breath for that topic.
For that one, just a reminder, we went with the single board meeting in November to free this slot up just for the Academic Achievement and Growth Report. So the reason we did that, there's no sort of hard stop at the end of it, so we will try to keep it to 2 hours or so, but depending on the questions from the board, sometimes that one can go longer.
Any additional questions on academic achievement? Thank you, Ms. Dawson. Buildings and grounds, Mr. Tulio.
Item 6.01 is a discussion about the athletic field improvements and recommendation, but I'm also going to tie this into and just jump into 6.04, which is a review of the buildings and ground meeting, because basically that's where we were for much of the meeting, so I think it's appropriate here that we talk about that and the recommendations that came out of that. So, Dana? I was just nodding towards you, sorry.
I got it. Just to kind of review what we did discuss at the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting, we did have 2 representatives here from Eccles Architecture. They reviewed the bid tabulation for the miscellaneous athletic improvement project. I do believe that those were open on September 1st. We had discussed not only the capital funding plan and what we had allocated for the 2017-18 year, but then we were also looking at what those projects would entail. Additional information will follow later this week to each of the board members, kind of regarding the breakdown of those allocations and what our recommendation would be for the action item on September 25th. Did anyone have any specific questions that they wanted to review based on our discussion that we had at the committee level?
Do you mind summarizing where we currently stand based on that discussion?
Sure. At this point in time, we had talked about that we would be opting into the base bid for the 4 projects. The 4 projects that we had discussed were the softball dugouts at Richland Elementary, the extension of the team room at the visitor side at the stadium location. In there, we were also talking about reconfiguring the locker rooms at the stadium, and I am missing one off the top of my head.
Storage under the
storage area, I'm sorry, how did I forget? A 50-foot storage area underneath the bleachers at the stadium location. The base bid did come in at approximately $1.2 million, which was over what we had originally allocated, which was closer to about $950,000 for what we thought those costs would be. We did have some flexibility in the capital funding plan for the 2017-18 year. We were able to pay for about $37,000 worth of lighting upgrades that we did for upgrades in multiple buildings and in multiple gymnasiums where we had changed out the light fixtures to LED. We ended up paying for those out of the 2016-17 fiscal year based on when the work was actually completed in the month of June. So we do have some flexibility with those. We also had kind of a list of projects that we've already completed that have come in somewhat under budget. So for example, we had allocated about $20,000 for the Wexford Elementary announcement system and clock system over at that building, and we came in about $7,000 under budget on that. So I'll provide a list to all of the board members of those types of items that would get us a little closer to the $1.2 million number. However, we do still need to look at where the additional funding would come from in the approximately $150,000 range. We did have some surplus funds that we had moved over in the 2016-17 spring timeframe over into the Capital Reserve Fund. A piece of that was to complete the Eden Hall parking lot expansion, but the Eden Hall project in and of itself was not the full cost of what we had moved over. So we do have some flexibility in that number as well. So I will try and detail that list a little bit further now that we kind of know what options that we were looking at. So again, in the base bid, it would cover those 4 projects. We did look at 2 small alternates, and one would be air conditioning in the trainer's room, and the other alternate that we looked at was improving the flooring for the locker room area beyond what the base bid had involved. So again, I'll provide that detailed listing to the board members prior to the vote later this month.
So the current status is that we're likely to be asked to vote on an over-plan project. Yes or no?
That's what came out of committee. So what I was going to comment on is from the committee itself, and Steve had attended as well, but from the committee itself, the general feel was to bring forward the recommendation of the administration for the base plus option 1A, I believe it was, and those details so that we can talk about finances are going to be forthcoming in the next 2 weeks. So at the next meeting, we can have a discussion around, from a full board standpoint, do we want to move forward with the recommendation based on the philosophy of how we're going to handle the fact that it came in over plan. And one of the things that, and I don't know if the architects will be there next time, but what they commented on it is if we pull pieces out, and try to replace it later, the labor costs, if we do it in the future, won't be the same. So the decision is going to come down to, do we go for this over plan and move things around, or do we not go for this project that's over plan? And plan and budget was an interesting discussion that we can have at another time.
Thank you.
And the other issue was also, well, I guess I'm not here. The other issue is whether or not you would lose some of the economies of labor scale by separating it out. If you have masonry work done in different areas, when you have a mason at the same time working on 2 different projects while they're there versus bringing them back a second time. And so some of the cost savings may not bear out when you factor in the additional costs later on. So those were all parts of the discussions that we had.
Any other discussion on that?
Everything I do.
Let's go with that. Okay, so that's item 6.01 and 04 kind of as a sum. The item 6.02 was supposed to be part of the Buildings and Ground Committee meeting, but we got into a pretty meaningful discussion. So again, Dana, I'm going to kick it to you for the recommendations on the bucket truck.
So items 6.02 and 6.03 somewhat kind of tied together. The first one would be the recommendation for the purchase of the replacement bucket truck. We did issue a very detailed bid specification. It was advertised in multiple locations, not only on our website, but in 2 papers. The bids that we had received were actually from out of state, so it did have quite a bit of exposure, should I say. The difficulty was that we did only receive in 2 bids. We are recommending the lower of the 2, which is a cost of $51,500. The second item that is listed as 6.03 would be the disposal of our current bucket truck. What we're recommending is the sale of that through a consignment process. The bidder that came in as the lowest bid, which was I-80 Equipment, is willing to work with us to attempt to sell that previous bucket truck. I believe they have to put a little bit of work into it because obviously it's not in great shape, but they're going to attempt to sell that on a consignment basis. So we would be able to receive some funding back for that as well as a sale of a fixed asset. Does anyone have any questions on that process? Okay, great, thank you.
Since we already did 6.04, I think we're moving on.
Any additional comments or questions on buildings and grounds? Thank you, Mr. DiTullio. Thank you, Ms. Kirk. Student Services, Ms. Johnston.
Item 7.01 will be for board consideration at the regular September meeting. It'll be a motion to approve for the 2017-18 AIU Travel Instruction Services Letter of Agreement as attached. Okay. Okay. Item 7.02 will be for board consideration at the November meeting. It'll be a, I don't want to read the whole thing.
I can take that one.
Go ahead.
Johnson, if you like. So this is another informational item for the board related to SAT and ACT test prep. This has been something that we've heard from our parents for a number of years, that what else could we potentially offer our students to support them as they prepare to take SAT and ACT assessments. So we have a company that we have here as a proposal, Goldstein Test Prep, that we've partnered with them in the past where they've done some presentations for large groups of parents and students to really understand the SAT, ACT process. So with that, we've started to talk to them about offering our students some face-to-face learning opportunities here after school and during the weekend. So currently we do have access to SAT, ACT prep through Naviance, which is a software program that we've purchased for students in grades 7 through 12. And we understand that's a nice resource, but we've talked about, for some learners, that's just not the ideal learning environment. They want that face-to-face contact for learning and preparing for these types of assessments. So we had a Academic Achievement Committee meeting on the 28th to talk about this and shared some of the ideas and the detailed proposal, which is available here for the community and board to review. And then there were some questions from the committee related to the scope of, how many students could potentially become involved at one time. So these are 4 to 5 week courses that are set up to run right before an SAT or ACT exam. So the students engage in the course, they take a pre-assessment. That pre-assessment information is used throughout their course of study. There are assessments along the way, and then you end the course and you're ready, at that time for the ACT or the SAT. So the question was related to how many students could they potentially support at one time. Their estimate is about 60 students. They like around 12 students per class. They have 5 full-time instructors, so that would give us that opportunity for approximately 60 students. They do offer nighttime courses for kids and families for some more flexibility, so that number could go beyond 60 if students could not participate in the after-school courses. Another question was cost. So
That's per prep window.
That's correct. Oh, yes, that's correct. And there's multiple windows prior to each of the assessments. The other question was around cost. There's cost associated with this. The updated proposal that the company provided, if you wouldn't work through this program that we're working with within the district, the cost would be about $650 per child to go through the 4-week course. In this partnership with us, they've agreed to reduce that to $550, so there's still a significant cost for families, but the convenience of a right-after-school program with additional some travel perhaps on the weekend as a prep, we see as a benefit for some families to engage in, seeing that many of our families have already connected with this organization. The other question was if some families for some reason can't afford that, could there be some cost reductions? And they have confirmed that in their proposal, that based upon some economic status here at the district, that there's that option for all students to have this opportunity. So the proposals are all there for the community and board to review, and we would like to come forward with a proposal to move forward with this so we could get that first group set up to start in November with a December SAT assessment.
I assume that you'd be tracking these, the students' scores, without, obviously blacking out their names, but to see, are you going to have any controls if they're going to be students who have taken the SATs before and then after taking this prep, you might be able to see if some of these laudable increased numbers are reached?
We are not going to run a double-blind gold standard research study, no, but we will ask similar to the proposal, we'll ask for results, and that is to see what was the gain of students in the aggregate as a result of the course. What was their pre, what was their post, and what happened as a result of that training. So we will get those similar statistics were provided in the proposal, but we can ask for those within our students. But it is their program being offered. We're providing the space, but it's their program.
It's not a contract in terms of a length of time, so we've talked about, interest, how many families and students will be interested in the programs, and then results, feedback from families and students will determine if we continue to offer this.
Okay. Doctor, I don't recall specifically, but in the end, worst case is it's an abject failure. We get the worst of the worst instructors. We get this tremendous feedback from the participating parents that they didn't get their money's worth. What happens then?
Well, what we have right now is already statements from our students and families that have gone through this program that says it was a positive experience. So with that information and the relationship we've had with this company, we feel confident going in that it's going to be positive. If it comes out negative, like I said, obviously we would not continue that partnership and look for other means to support our kids with that face-to-face.
Who would the parents be coming to for a refund?
That would be that company. I mean, for the most part, we would be doing some advertising to say this is available after school. The convenience is obviously a plus for our families, but also a plus for this company. The cost really associated for our district are facilities costs, and that's it.
That'll be made clear in the communication moving forward.
Right.
Thank you.
Item 7.03 will be for board consideration at the regular September meeting. A motion to approve the attached 2017-18 small games of chance resolution. Item 7.04 is an informational item. It will be a motion to approve the student attendance and application of the Student Discipline Code for the Pine Richland High School band to travel to Norfolk, Virginia to participate in the NATO Parade of Nations from Friday, April 27th through Sunday, April 29th, as described on the attached field trip request form. And item 7.05 is a reminder of a Student Services Committee meeting that I am excited about on October 9th, 2017 at 6 o'clock.
Just to add a brief comment regarding that agenda, the game plan is to provide brief updates on the first 4 bullet items in about the first half of the meeting, and then have about half of the meeting left to have conversation around school start times. So for those in the community who watch communications or meetings, this really is a preliminary first discussion to see the viability of looking at high school, middle school start times and trying to shift those back. There is literature around that, the discussions around that for many years. And so we want to explore what that looks like, what the potential considerations are for that, and what other rippling effects does it have on other grade levels within the district and what that might look like. So we will work hard to have as much logistical type information prepared, to have that information in front of us, just to engage then in dialogue regarding that. But I would encourage, if you're not on the Student Services Committee, but you're able, it'll hopefully be around the last 45 minutes of that meeting that we start to talk about school start times.
Could I ask a question about that? Do you have, will you be presenting other schools that have these proposed start times and any information around, their experience?
Some examples of schools, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very helpful. I know that a lot of times we talk about that and it's so-called science, but when you look at the lifestyle of a teenager, that's pretty invested in their after-school activities and work, etc. I'd like to see as much as I can about that.
Sure. And what we'll do, and again, is we'll share as many resources as we can in advance as well, so that you have an opportunity to review that prior.
I would echo your sentiment, but I would challenge each board member. This topic is very, very well researched. The impact of sleep or lack thereof on kids and adults is well documented, and is an incredibly large industry completely centered on better sleep for better health. So I'd ask you to please make an effort to go out and do some research on your own, so that you can come to this topic more prepared, because it's well worth it.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to get into the conversation now, but, there is also, no matter what you do with a change of a schedule, when you're attached to an electronic device that prohibits your body from shutting down or your cortisol levels from balancing out, I mean, it's a problem. So that's why more information is better on that topic.
Get your blue light filters.
Yeah.
You gotta have the blue light filters. Yeah, there is, Mr. Stegman is correct, there is considerable data out there. Any additional questions for Student Services? Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Staff Services, Ms. Goebel.
Item 8.01, the board will be presented with a motion to approve a list of personnel items that will be provided closer to meeting time. 8.02, it's an information item. Do you want me to just make this announcement, or does someone want to speak to it, or really to recognize the...
Every year we go through the process of recognizing tenure. It's not an actual vote of the board. It's merely has to be on an informational item, which we will officially do that at, this evening, but we'll actually be on the 28th as well. Just to acknowledge those individuals who have successfully completed 3 years of service at Pine Ridge School District and attained tenure during this past school year. So there's only 2 that attained tenure, which are in the list, but we will acknowledge that at the September 28th meeting.
8.03. This is regarding the review of a batch of policies, the 100 sequence of program policies, and I don't know if anyone would like to speak to this.
Sure, I'd be glad to. As an administrative team, we certainly appreciate the discipline that it requires to go through sections of policy and review and update them. It is not often that school districts maintain policy reapprovals or updates, and it's very easy for policies to get old, to fall out of line with any changes in law or regulation. So we have completed over the last few years a variety of sections. They're relatively smaller sections. This section has about 47 for exactly 47 policies, so that's significant. What we have in our system is the ability to see recommended changes to that language from PSBA. Most of these policies were last batch updated by the board in 2009, so it's a much newer set relative to some of the work that we've been doing over the last couple of years. Our process that we have followed is we've listed all of those. Some policies have actually been revised as on a one-off basis, so those are good to go. But we have them listed here. We are working to, depending on what the policy is, to make some additional changes. We will get those to the board as soon as we can, but certainly no later than Friday the 22nd. Our proposed is that on the 25th, they're there for information. What we've asked the board is that any member of the board who wants to pull any policy from the batch at any time in that process to do that, we'll pull it out, group them together, and then take it to committee for more detailed discussion. So at any point, if there's anything in this list that's capturing attention or interest that you think should be pulled out for more significant discussion, please let us know. We'll do the same thing. As we go through review, we may find a few that we think really require some attention as opposed to just having that in the batch. So we'll do the same exercise. But again, since even through the first read, something can be pulled, there's still several weeks of looking at the proposed red lines to determine whether that happens.
I would ask one small request. As you go through these from your senior leadership team, don't wait until you have them all done to send them all in one batch. If you have some, because that way you may not have to read 47 in 2 nights, as opposed to if you sort of do a few and you get them done and send them out, then we can sort of read these 47 over the next 2 weeks instead of 2 nights. It's helpful.
We will do our best, and I'll rely on Mrs. Will. They're available through board docs, and we're able to view in the system, so we can work to figure out a way to notify what's there, sort of in waves, if that's what you're looking for. Okay.
8.04, this is regarding a reminder of the Staff Service Committee meeting that's scheduled for September 25th at 6 p.m. And I know I had sent an email earlier, Dr. Miller, explaining that I wouldn't be able to attend. And Holly was just...
I will be out of town that day as well.
That would only leave Teresa and Dennis.
What day is it again?
25th, next board meeting.
Yeah, that's
fine.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Yeah.
Very good.
Okay. That's the Mr. Kenny show. That's the short version of that list.
You're really going to miss something.
Yeah. You might want to reschedule.
I'll watch it. Oh, it won't be on TV, yeah.
You could just record it for me.
What's that?
You could do a webcast or record it.
Bring your own snacks.
I call you earlier that we can do a dry run.
We could do the Hangout app.
You drop us off a webcam, we'll keep it on there for you. Get one of those Nest cams or something, put it up there for you.
Yeah.
I have the Hangout app
You just
that they
die
put on my phone. Sean put it on.
If they still have Google Glass, I can put it on, come watch it for you.
This whole thing's been on Twitch the whole time, so you guys know. Item 9.01, Jeff, shall I?
Well, I just wanted to ask if there was any more questions, and thank Ms. Goebel if there weren't. No. Thank you, and please proceed, Mr. Lyons.
Item 9.01 is a motion for board consideration at the regular September meeting, a motion to approve the purchase of 140 additional Chromebooks and 5 carts at a total cost of $38,515. Is this for the middle school?
This would be distributed to the secondary campus, so I do believe a majority of them would be going towards the middle school.
Any questions for Mr. Lyons or Mr. Stovender? Thank you both, gentlemen. Board business. Item 10.01, election of PSBA officers. We will be asked at the meeting to vote for president-elect, vice president, treasurer, and Western at-large representative. And from my understanding, the treasurer and Western at-large representatives, there's only one person running for each one. So if there's any discussion or recommendations from our PSBA reps, we'll take them now or we can take them then. None? Okay, we'll have them then. And 10.02, or election of trustees, the PSBA Insurance Trust. There will be 2 to vote upon, and there are only 2 running. So that should not be a long discussion. Reports.
Report.
Okay, I have no reports. It's time for our second recognition of visitors. Anybody wish to approach the board, please do so. Seeing none, the board will retire to executive session to discuss legal and personnel matters. Thank you for watching and for attending.